All right, and we are live once more. Hello, everyone. I think I've got the picture in a pretty good place. Oftentimes it's hard to tell. I'm going to take a few moments here, set up, make sure that the sound is working. As people are beginning to join. Oops. Oops. There we go. Yeah. I am hearing sound, so it looks like I'm being heard. Yeah. I am hearing sound, so it looks like. Good. Top chat. Hello from Rohan, sending lots of love from South Africa. Wow, South Africa. What time is it there? Josh Bivens. Hello, GP from Albuquerque. Hello, Josh. Good to see you. So I'm going to just play this for a little bit as we get going here. Everybody just kind of sit back and relax. Let go of your day. It is time for Satsang. It is time for some serious inner inquiry. It's time for us to take our spiritual life seriously, but not too. Seriously with a smile. I do love this instrument. Well, happy Father's Day to all of you fathers out there. It is Father's Day here in the U.S. And I'm really glad people are beginning to join in now and join. Susan hi from Kansas City. Robert, hi from Southern Nevada. Switzerland. Sophia from Switzerland is here. Jane Flintoff from the UK. Dave and Elaine. Hi, Dave and Elaine. Greetings from UK. Thank you for always pointing us back to presence. Goodness, how could I point you anywhere else? I mean, that's all there is. I mean, no matter where you point, that's what you find. It's only in the imagination that we're something else. And so we're going to talk about it a little bit today before I start into the questions. Dave Thomas, hi GP. Dave here from Houston, Texas. I always listen to your recorded satsangs during the week. Happy Father's Day. Thank you. Very welcome. Patang, hi GP. Hi Patang. I think you are in Israel. Joseph Capelli, love you. Hello, Joseph. Thomas, hi from Lithuania. Wow, this is amazing, isn't it? It's 10 p.m. in South Africa. Wow, wonderful. Johan I can never say your last name, Johanna. Labadi, hi from Mexico. Hello, everyone. Please do put a comment in there as to where you're from and the like. I love seeing that. And while you're at it, hit the like button. It does help, and if you feel like it, share it with others. Emiliano from Sweden. Hi. So I called this particular satsang today, No Person, No Problem. You know, my most, everybody can hear me, I'll move this in a little closer. My most popular, most viewed video on YouTube is called There Is No Person. And it's a pretty remarkable subject. Hello, Ursula from the Madeira Island. Joseph is from Brooklyn. Anne from Georgia. Heron, it's 10 p.m. in the Netherlands as well, and the sun still hasn't set. That's great. Hello from Israel, Sam Shmuel Cohen, although in the UK right now. Rohan says, in what sense is limitation real, and how does it differ from a sense of lack? Elsa G, your videos help me so much. Very good. Chrissy, hi G, love and deepest gratitude from New Zealand. Hi Chrissy. Chrissy is one of my certified inner reconciliation coaches, facilitators. I'm going to get to your question here in a second, Scott, because the answer lies not so much in the sense of lack. I'll go into where the sense of lack actually originates, but the source of it, right? Remember, lack is simply a concept. We look upon something, we have a point of view as to what should be there, right? It's not, and so we say it is lacking. Okay? The very same thing happens for every single one of us as an individual. Right? When the sense emerges, and it happens between 2 and 3 years old, the sense of being separate, that there's a me. Up to that age, around that age, the child, you, had no sense of there being a self and another. You were oneness itself. You were the one. There wasn't a sense of this being a hand out there somewhere. Everything was inclusive. Everything was just, you didn't even have the words myself and other. You wouldn't say everything is myself like we would, spiritual conversations would go. You were simply the living oneness. You didn't know yourself as oneness, you just were, right? Now, in the midst of this oneness arises a sense of separation. It happens for everybody. In some instances, it can be something that just kind of happens gradually. In other cases, like myself, it happened like that because of a traumatic event. And suddenly I was a person. I was not safe. I was separate. Now that's just a sense, a feeling that arises. It's a sense of danger, a sense of not being safe. And when it arises, what inevitably happens is that there arises a sense of fear, right? Because now suddenly there's me and other. But it's also very clear that this me is completely dependent upon the other. And I've got to give that other everything, the homage of a god. I've got to bring my alms and my offerings, or I'm going to be snuffed out. So it comes with a sense of lack. Now, once there's a me, and then of course an other, it's the birth of this constant comparison, right? This constant, they have something I don't, right? Oh, I've got this, I'm going to hold on to it. Or mine is very special, yours is very plain, or theirs is very special and mine is very plain, right? It's usually the other bit. I want to draw a picture of what's happening within the consciousness. Now remember, you are still that wide open, spacious oneness. That hasn't gone anywhere, right? It is just now filling up with the sense of the individualized sense of a life, of a life form, of a being of sorts. It's kind of the oneness space is now within it is arising this sense of being a person, a separate self. And with that comes lack. And of course, with lack comes fear, it comes doubt, it comes attachment and aversion, it becomes grasping, taking of a position, struggling with this or that. All of that arises, right? Because it's all part of the entire package. Because nothing arises by itself. There wasn't just a me, right? When there's just a me, that's all there is. It's the sense of oneness, and there isn't even a thought me, right? But when a sense of a me arises, it doesn't arise in a vacuum. It arises with an entire universe. It arises in context, because I have to define me in terms of other. And so now this is all happening. There's a sense of it, right? There's a sense of being a separate self. Now, here's the question. Does that separate self actually exist? Is it a real entity? Am I this separate self? This is the question that everybody has to come to see. We have assumed that we are. I assume that I am this finite, individualized thing. And therefore I've lived my life accordingly. And during spiritual seeking, I even, the sense of a separate self was seeking to reunify, to find this, whatever it is that appears to be missing. And so the drama of this ongoing search continues. It's kind of like, the character in a movie looking for the screen, right? And he's, through deserts and over mountains and over oceans and out into space. Where's the screen? Where's the screen? So when I use the word the person, I'm referring to that separate self. So what is it? Let's just look at it really carefully. What is this? Well, there is, for sure, things that are going on. There are experiences, right? We experience thought. We experience emotion and sensation. Different kinds of thoughts and emotions and sensations. Pleasant and unpleasant. Comforting and threatening. We experience memories. We experience relationships, associations. An enormously complex bundle of stuff, right? That we do experience. It's there for real. No doubt about it. We all experience something. It's like the reflex on your knees. The doctor hits it. It does this. It's just there. It's just part of life. It's part of the functioning of form. It isn't a person. It isn't personal any more than a robot would be a person, or a corporation is a person. Although in this country they've said that they are. Right? I looked through them. I walked around. I can't find anybody there. I can't find a soul. I can't find a sense of being. I can't find anything. I've been in plenty of them. There's nothing there. There's no person there. Now the same thing is true for ourselves. We assume that there's a person there. So I would say, okay, is the person then the sum total of all of these things that are happening? Now, modern science would say it is, right? That in fact, consciousness, the seat of consciousness, is a very complex, dense structure right up here, the frontal lobe, and that is me. That is the me. And so it is insisting that I am this combination of stuff. Now, if I am this total combination of stuff, then if I was to pull off a fingernail, then it would not be me anymore, right? If I was to adjust this and that, if I was to adjust thoughts, if I was to undergo hypnosis, it would there certainly could be a very different experience. I could have a different name. I could have all sorts of different things. But would I be different? This is the thing I want us to ponder very deeply. Is the self, who I am, nothing more than a composite of all of these things? Now, an example I like to use is we say the wind is blowing, right? Well, the wind isn't blowing. There's not a wind, a thing, the cloud with the big puffy cheeks, blowing, right? There's not a thing doing a blowing. There is only the motion of wind, the motion of air. We call that wind, right? And so now we have objectified that which is nothing but a functioning, right? wind there per se. There's not a thing called wind. There's only this very complex functioning, or a thing called weather. There's only this very complex functioning that's taking place. And yet we're constantly giving it a word. It's kind of the prison language creates for us. I mean, when you were born, you didn't really, you weren't GP or Aline and David or whatever. You weren't, right? That was given to you, right? Didn't come with you. It wasn't printed on your head. All of this stuff was getting added onto you. And then what emerged at a certain point was a sense that I am that. The point of an inquiry like this is to find, well, okay, what was there before that took place? If you take all the function apart, take away thought, take away experience, take away memories, take away relationships, take away all of that, it'll be very uncomfortable because you'll be getting no feedback to support the sense of identity that you've been walking around with. But wouldn't you still be there? Take all of that away. So if you kind of sort it all out, you can't find anything there. You can't find a GP. You can't find one. If you really look at your experience, you cannot find this self that you've regarded yourself to be. It's, matter of fact, there's nothing there but a thought. Now, if you are not that, then who has a problem with your life? Do you have a problem with your life? Or does this image, self-image, this idea, have a problem with your life? It thinks things should be different. They should be like, this. And they're not. So without that person there, do you have a problem? Is there a problem with anything? Doesn't the person and the problem come together? The person is simply a name we have given to a particular set of conditions. It is conditioning and nothing more. And of course, there's nothing fixed about conditioning, right? Conditioning is simply how the little being adapted itself to the particular environment. Take any child and put them in any environment, and they will respond to that environment. My granddaughter is 2.5 years old. Her mother's from Hong Kong. The father is American. Okay? Mom talks to her all the time in Cantonese, and she goes to a preschool a couple days a week where they talk Cantonese. It's bilingual. Dad and I, of course, talk in English. Now, her grandmother from Hong Kong is here, and she doesn't speak English at all. And I'm watching this child, right? Like any child, she looks at me or her father, she speaks English. She looks at her grandmother or mother, she speaks Cantonese. Doesn't think of it, doesn't even cross her mind. Now take that very same child, and if the mother had been an American, never learn it, right? Simply wouldn't. Does that mean they couldn't? So now she's going to have, as part of her identity, bilingual. I'm bilingual, right? As if that was some kind of fixed attribute. It isn't. It's just conditioning. Now your conditioning may have been really good, right? You may have really wonderful parents, right? Believe the fall from grace, the fall from oneness into a sense of separateness happens no matter how good your parents are. It has nothing to do with the quality of parenting. Although it can be more of a challenge if it's abusive parents. It'll increase the suffering, right? So it can actually speed up the process that leads to awakening. Or it can make you rebellious, push things away. It's hard to say. The important thing to note is that the conditioning is really just the system. It's the body, it's the form, it's the way things are. Everything is a result of the conditions that it's in. It is not nothing is fixed inherently. This is the whole point. This is what Buddha meant when he says there's no self. There's nothing fixed about it. So you, the very same, the one you are saying right now is you, right? Having a slightly different experience in childhood could have completely different memories, characters, reactions, and tastes, and everything. More positive, more negative, more functional, more dysfunctional, and you would say, that is me. Is it really you? Find this you that you are supposed to be. This is the mission. I've looked, I can't find it. I've found an idea of it, of a me, but I found no me that was actually fixed. So when I refer to Greg, you refer to whoever you refer to, whatever your name is, what are you actually referring to? You are referring to a thought, an arbitrary thought, that its only point of reference is a bunch of conditioned stuff. That's it. That's all there is to it. Right? Is that what you are? Now if you say, well, I am something, right? And I go, yes, perfect. Now, look at that very closely. There is a sense of being, is there not? That is undeniable. The question I love to ask, the thing I always want to bring somebody back to is, what is that? We've assumed that that sense of being is this person, this collection of thoughts and feelings and memories and associations, relationships, and all that sort of stuff. We assumed that that sense of being was coming from that. But in fact, that sense of being there was there before any of this happened. So it's simply your sense of being now has conditioned itself into this little container. If I pour water into a container and it's stuck in that container, even freeze it so it can't move, right? Is the water actually that container, or is it just temporarily confined in there? In fact, it could even be in a thin little membrane, right? Like a bubble, right? So absolutely thin, just tiniest little prick will pop it. And yet it can feel like it's very contained. It's like, a jar of water in the ocean, looking longingly out at the ocean going, oh, I'd really rather be out there. I wish I was that. Well, you are that, right? So the fact of the matter is your sense of oneness, that sense that you had from the time you were a small child, is who you are. That sense of being, and spiritual awakening means liberating that sense of being from identification with the person, and the person is nothing more than an idea projected on a bunch of conditions. The conditions are there, they're real, right? But there's no self there. It's like the mirage in the desert, right? If you're thirsty, you're going to see, it's an oasis. It's an oasis, and you start running towards it. Of course, it doesn't matter how far you run or how fast, it stays exactly the same distance away. But now, the desert's there, right? The sun's there. The heat is there. The sand is there. The reflection of the heat. The dryness is there. The heat rising, creating distortions in the atmosphere in front of you. They're all there. The oasis isn't. It's projected on what's actually there. The person, the one you take yourself to be, is a projection on what is nothing other than a complex set of conditionings. Is that clear? So you're not that. I'm not GP. GP is simply a name given to all of this myriad complex set of functions. So I am not that. Now, if that's clear to you, then you can walk into the other question, and that is, well, then who am I then? And mind you, all suffering arises out of the identification with what you're not. All suffering, all pain, all sorrow, all misery, all ignorance, all arises out of that. So, okay, I'm not that. So then, what am I? This is the place I want to bring you to, and I don't want to give you an answer. If I give you an answer, first off, it'll be wrong, because it'll be a word, it'll be a concept. If you don't recognize it as just a word or a concept, or a pointer, right, pointing at the moon and you're looking at the finger instead of the moon, you're going to take that in as a concept, a nice non-dual concept, a nice spiritual concept, but you're going to take it in and maybe even stop the real journey, which is to look for yourself. I can find a sense of my own existence, but I can't find an actual form that's having that sense of existence, because every form that comes to mind is being perceived by that sense of existence. So I want you to imagine right now that you are, right now, the great I am. Not a seeker trying to get to enlightenment or awakening, but you are the awakened one. The one. Not the many, not one of many awakened beings, but the awakened one. That's what the word Buddha means. It means the awakened one. It doesn't mean one who's awake. It means the awakened one. The one that has awakened to itself. In fact, Buddha even said, when I attained the great unparalleled enlightenment, simultaneously all beings attained the great unparalleled enlightenment. So imagine you are the awakened one. Just humor me. Your minds go, well, no, I'm not. I'm a seeker. Let's just play for a second. Pretend you are the awakened one. The one. Does this awakened one have a problem? Does it have a boundary? Can you look at anything that isn't yourself? Is every experience you're having not something appearing in and of yourself? It doesn't change the fact that experience is happening, but it certainly changes how we perceive all experience. I can either experience it from the perspective of a person, in which there's an event out here that's going to affect me and I may have to protect myself or grab at something, or I experience it as the awakened one, and now it's a completely different experience. I'm simply looking at myself, an aspect, a rapidly shifting aspect of myself. This is more than just a little exercise, folks, because you are the awakened one. It's actually the truth. And we're lying to ourselves, telling us that we're the person, even telling us that we're a really good person, a spiritual person on the spiritual journey, trying really, really hard to wake up. Folks, the guy in the dream doesn't wake up. We wake up from the dream of GP, or you know, your name goes here. We wake up from that. And from that moment on, the name GP, as far as I'm concerned, is simply a word I use to refer to this pattern of conditioning.